Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
It's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast here at MODEX 2020 in the New Warehouse booth, and I am joined now by Samay Kohli, who is the CEO of GreyOrange. GreyOrange is a robotics company. You guys may remember them. We talked to them briefly last year at ProMat, so we're going to check in with Samay and see what GreyOrange is up to, what you guys have been up to for the last year. So Samay, thank you for joining the show. Thank you for coming here. I know you had a little bit of a journey trying to find the booth, so thank you for coming.
Sure, Kevin. Thank you for having me here.
Definitely. So why don't you give us a little bit of background on GreyOrange for the listeners? Tell us what GreyOrange does and what you guys are all about.
So GreyOrange, as you introduced, popularly well known as the robotics company in the warehouse space. Essentially, what we do is we provide a software platform called GreyMatter, which essentially augments how different operators, robots, operate in fulfillment centers.
Okay.
Right? And we focus on essentially the problem set of combining piece picking and case picking together for warehouses, which are essentially or fulfillment centers, which are trying to run for both e-commerce specifically, or most of our customers operate e-commerce as well as retail together out of the same fulfillment center.
Okay, so kind of like a little bit of an omni-channel model in a sense, right? Okay, interesting. So now tell us a little bit about, I guess, what are you guys exhibiting here this year, and then what, since we talked to you last at ProMat, what's changed for GreyMatter over the last year?
So I think when you come to the booth, what you have here is we're showing how different parts of GreyMatter's applications below come together to an end customer. So I think at ProMat we were showing, these were still shown as discrete solutions, whereas here we can actually are getting better at stitching the story together and being able to explain it to people, because as you know, the warehouses we usually operate in are 500,000 square feet, a million square feet. So getting that entire picture view down to a booth
is difficult,
is a journey, and we're getting better at explaining that journey.
Definitely. I'm excited to see it. So now you kind of mentioned it a little bit, but one of the differentiators for GreyOrange is really integrating the software and the robotics and kind of building them together for that complete product. So now, what kind of difference does that make, and why is that so important?
So, let me say a controversial thing and then come back, right? So I think the controversial thing a lot of people say is that, is robots are robots and software is software, right? I think at GreyOrange, we really believe that both of those things coming together make a lot of difference, right? Okay. And so what that means is that, so while you look at the robots, all of the robots, how they interact, what they report up, what do they actually say, how much, there's stuff that they do autonomously because they know they don't need to ask that much to GreyMatter. And there's a lot of stuff which they think, hey, there's a bigger picture involved. So before I take this decision, I would also want to know from GreyMatter, what does it think about my decision? So when you look at, all our Ranger robots, right, all of them have this dual balance of decision making, right? Okay. So their decision at, what they need to be doing for the next couple of minutes and decisions they need to take instantaneously, that they leave onto themselves, right? Whereas there is stuff which happens at GreyMatter, because then when GreyMatter kicks in, GreyMatter is actually interacting with a lot of different kind of robots. It's interacting with the WMS, ERP. It's also interacting with real-world variables like what's the traffic condition, what's the weather happening, right? So there's a lot of different factors that come in. So what really becomes the differentiator for GreyMatter and Ranger robots coming together is this they know how to interact together and how do
Right.
they get, because we have a strong belief that supply chain is a very risk averse industry, and it's not you don't, as I like saying, you don't get promoted if you do a good season, but you definitely get fired if you do a bad season, right? So and hence with that core belief, right, what we believe is that the end customer really, it's about what they get out of the system. It's not whether the robots did or what GreyMatter did separately.
Okay.
It's really how do they come together and solve the problem constantly as everything changes in the environment. So sorry for the long answer, but that's how it
No,
makes
that's good.
a
I like
difference.
very in depth. So it's kind of in a sense, I guess, it's making sure that the software and the robot itself kind of keeps pace with each other, right? And it allows for you to grow them together.
Yes. Another way to explain this is, right, a customer defines what's important for them, right?
Right.
So for example, right, for a tote going to a store, they say that, for us it's important that these totes go to the store in this particular order.
Okay.
But then, this is the cost of how much a tote should be filled, and if we don't fill it, this is what we pay for logistics cost for it.
Interesting.
Right? And this is kind of how many people we have available in. So what the customer defines is a logistics problem, right? And we would, set that up in GreyMatter, saying
Right.
this is what the customer is trying to do, right? And then we have a strong belief that in supply chain and logistics, there's always, there are trade-offs and payoffs, right? Every decision that a warehouse manager makes, a software makes, has to be like, out of these 6 possibilities, which one do I do? And there's no right answer, right? So what GreyMatter and Rangers do together is try to keep that promise, right?
Okay.
They essentially try to say that, everything will change, right?
Right.
We're in a season of, coronavirus is coming around,
Right,
and,
yeah.
a lot of stuff has changed, right? Nobody predicted,
Yeah.
right, that this would happen, right? But all of this is going to change, right? Now, real time, how can you make sure that all those principal goals that the customer has, right? You're not shipping off because, nobody anticipated this. You're not, getting a huge logistics bill, or, you're not underserving the stores at this challenging time when maybe half the workers don't show up, right? So how do you, so this has been the core part of GreyOrange's journey throughout, right? Which is, right, what happens when, you've not predicting it, or, and peaks another one, right? I mean, when peaks happen, we're also focused towards peak, right? But, if anybody could predict a peak correctly, then, it'll be predicting the future, right? So, but the idea is, how do you set yourself up, right? So that when that real-time action comes, right? I mean, you predicted you'll get 6 items per order, but, you actually got 4 because the promotion went different, blah, 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 right? Or a competitor put something on a higher price and you suddenly are selling something more, right?
Yeah.
So all this stuff, while it's happening, how do you make sure the Ranger robot, GreyMatter, right, all, your associates in the facility are together producing the best they could in those scenarios, right? And that's essentially the key game. It's not really about, are the robots running, is the software running? It's essentially making sure, right, that certain decisions need to be taken real time, right? And that's where GreyMatter comes into play, right? It picks up about, I think right now the biggest site we have picks up about 2.5 million decisions every second, right? It's picking those many datas, it's trying it out, right? And that's what makes the difference. How do you react in that real-time environment?
Definitely. Very interesting. Very interesting. So staying on the software, I guess, so you guys just debuted, I guess, at MODEX now, the command center, right? So talk to us a little bit about what is the command center and how is that going to make a difference for those GreyOrange users?
So, when you look at command center, another augmentation of how do you actually get insights into the GreyMatter brain, right, in some sense, right? So now when GreyMatter is taking all these decisions real time, all the data is coming in, right? What we started understanding is that, a major part of the customer's pain now starts becoming, how does it get visibility over a larger footprint of supply chain, right? And how do they get this, decision making? How do they know, in simple words, how do they know what do they need to watch out, right? I mean, there's a popular saying, 10 years ago that, you could hear just by listening in a fulfillment center, right? Listening how the conveyors are running and how the sound's running, you can know, is this machine chucking along or, what you're doing. Most of our facilities are, now silent, right? So when that happens, right? And I think a lot of people have actually taken hits at making fancy dashboards and putting good graphics, and here you've got all your automation running, right? Where Command Center and GreyOrange really, GreyMatter come together and make the difference is essentially it's a platform, right?
Okay.
So it means that every customer, right, sets it up, right, for themselves, right? And what the machine learning AI part of GreyMatter does is it actually keeps populating metrics and things that you should be looking at, right? So now when you're in a world, when I give you an example, there are 2 million things being evaluated, right? You can't put up a fancy looking dashboard with 2 million numbers moving real time all the time, right? It's too much, right? And that's what's happening, right? So what the Command Center does, right, is it integrates into a lot of other services, into GreyMatter, right? And it gives the operator, right, at different levels, the right visibility towards what should they be worrying about, right? A very nice case, right? Let me give an example. A customer of ours was, he just walking down the field, there was a robot interaction center, and, one of the associates was picking up a box and he was not able, it said the barcode's not existent, right? So he's like, hey, that looks like, a problem, and, is this a big problem? Is this small? So he, walks over to the Command Center, right? And there's, he sets it up, and, I would say 30 minutes later, he's getting that, there are actually 30 times in every hour or in the last hour that associates have not found the right barcode, right? And he, within, I would say 1 hour, he's like, hey, I've got a master data problem and I don't know where the barcodes are registered, right? So if you think about this, I would say before Command Center, let's say if we claim for that, right? But before Command Center, this is like a study, right? It's like the person would go look at the associate, he'll say to the, operator or the supervisor, hey, is this a common problem? Can you keep an eye out on this, right? A couple of weeks later, they're like, hey, this seems to be a problem. Let's, why don't we commission a quick study, figure out how the data looks like, do a sample, right? And, a month later, maybe that problem is not there anymore also, right? By the time it's checked. The idea is that, how can you be so agile, right? To even do simple things as, time motion study, analytics, real time. Because what GreyMatter is already doing is cataloging all this information, whether you use it or not, right? So when the person actually set this up, they didn't just start recording, getting, hey, this is what's happening in the last hours. They're like, hey, since actually the facility went live, this is a problem that you've been having for the last 20 days. It's peaked up, right? So that visibility, just makes it so easy. I mean, as they say, data is, 90% of the journey, right? And if you have that, right, Command Center gives that in a very usable form to the customer. I think that's how I would define it.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting and very smart too, because a lot of things, like you said, like the barcode example, I could easily see, working in distribution center myself, seeing that, someone says something and then, oh, look at that, and then someone says something a couple of days later, oh yeah, I was supposed to look at that. So the fact that there's something that's kind of calling it out to you more and giving you more information to how often it's happening, I think that's really, really great thing. So it's a good thing that you guys put together there. So now, what is the future of GreyOrange now? You guys are growing, obviously, since we last talked to you, I think, at ProMat. So, what does the future look like for you guys? Are you continuing to expand on the robotics platform, continuing to expand on the software platform?
So, the way we define, as the supply chain fulfillment space is, as they put it, $1 trillion industry. It's huge. There's like endless amount of stuff that you can do. The journey that GreyOrange really takes is essentially making sure, how do we keep helping? Yeah, I know it's a very generic statement, keep helping our customers better, but that's really how our roadmap and gets driven by, right? So when you look at cases of we've you're right. Having come now, have thousands of robots deployed, millions of square feet running, right? You're like, okay, that's now. Suddenly, a year ago, that was like a big challenge, right? Now that's table stakes, right? Now it's like, hey, what's the next thing that you're troubled with, right? So for us, that's the journey, right? That we're on, right? And I think the market's really evolving, right? Everybody's coming at pace, right? Obviously, Amazon's taken a huge lead, and and now we like the space in is it's not about it's competing with Amazon and competing in this new consumer space, but it's not about copying them, right? It's about every different brand, every different, industry has a different promise that they make, right? And that stands out, right? So now it's really about, in this new world that's being set up as we go about, right? how do you actually solve, fulfillment challenges, right, which keep popping up because, most of the people don't think about that, right? I mean, they think about the front line. And
just put that box on my porch.
Yes, that's all that they think.
All right, great. So how can people find more out about GreyOrange?
So obviously our website's a good starting point.
All right, right? What's that?
So it's www.GreyOrange.com.
Okay.
Right. I think that's the right starting point, right? And as we say it, right? I mean, if you reach out to us, if you're, I think the best way for us is to, make customers meet other customers in their industry who've gone through this journey. Because I think the big thing when people come to GreyOrange's website or, essentially meet us is that a lot of people, robotics is like a pilot or, people are trying this technology out, right? And I think the big eye-opener for people once they discover GreyOrange, right, and we should probably do a better job of that, but is the fact that this is like real mission-critical stuff that brands are doing with this, right? It's not about, trying something out.
Yeah, it's just a little test, right?
Yes.
You got to embrace it.
Yep.
All right. So, Samay, thanks so much for coming on to the New Warehouse podcast. We'll definitely post more information about GreyOrange on the newwarehouse.com, and hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kevin, for having me here.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.